IVM.
Hi everybody, this is Amit Doshi, and I have a request. We'd really appreciate it if you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill out our survey over there. It's going to take a few minutes to do, but it gives us some really interesting information that we can take to advertisers and brands about who's listening to the network. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, while you're filling out the survey, we'll enter you into a random drawing where we'll be sending out a bunch of IVM swag to some of our listeners. Last year we sent out coffee mugs, and this year we're hoping to send out much cooler stuff. That's ivmpodcast.com/survey. We really appreciate your help.
Hello, welcome and Khushamadeen. You're listening to The Note with me, Mahroh Inayat. Petrol prices currently have crossed 90 rupees in Mumbai, matching an earlier all-time high. And they're at 83 rupees plus in the national capital of the country, pretty much in the same band across the country in various other cities. Diesel prices have also touched 80 rupees in Mumbai and are in the late 70s band in the rest of the country. 90 rupees a litre. Now that really hurts. And as you will realize, in multiple ways. Now, this government's own member of parliament and leader, Subramaniam Swamy, says this is absolutely wrong. He says petrol should be sold at not more than rupees 40 per litre. That's a 50 rupee gap. Now, Mr. Swamy's argument is based on the following. The Indian government is an oil importer because we as a country don't produce enough. At current international oil prices, according to Mr. Swamy, oil is costing the government rupees 30 per litre. Based on that, he says the government should ideally charge consumers rupees 40 per litre. A BJP MP and an economist at that is saying, don't charge 90 rupees, 83 rupees, but charge 10 rupees more than the cost at which you're buying it. So what is this extra rupees 50 that the government is charging us? This 50 rupees is made up of VAT, that is value added tax, and high excise duty. Simply put, taxes make up 60% of your petrol prices and nearly as much of your diesel prices. Essentially, more than half of what you pay for the fuel that you're putting in your car or auto rickshaw or motorbike is taxes, pure and simple. So while you were looking towards this government for some relief in a bad economy with no jobs in a pandemic year, it has decided to tax you. And not just tax you, but tax you harshly. This is not all. I told you at the beginning that high fuel prices affect us in multiple ways. What high fuel prices do is literally make matters worse. For one, high petrol prices will push up retail prices. Food, travel, etc., everything becomes more expensive. There's a domino impact. Imagine that when you're facing salary cuts, job losses, unemployment, we now have to face food inflation. Then if people don't have enough to spend, demand goes down. And there is clearly a downward spiral, which essentially means that your growth suffers as a country. Now, despite knowing all this, and the government has enough eminent economists to know this, why is it still doing this? For one, the tax on petrol and diesel has been one of its biggest revenue generators, especially for this government. And in a pandemic year, when it hasn't earned enough from other avenues, it's trying to make money here on fuel prices. 2. Global oil prices, which had crashed earlier in the year because of the pandemic and the lockdown, are now back on the rise. So the government doesn't want to take a hit. Instead, it is palming that off to you and me. Now, many will argue that the government needs the tax. I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying don't tax. But there has to be a cap. One probable solution is bring petrol under GST. Bring fuel prices under GST. Have a flat tax. One tax across and let it be a slab. According to the opposition, the current government has made 19 lakh crores in the last 6.5 years only by increasing prices and excise duty on petrol and diesel. 19 lakh crores of our money, yours and mine. For people already suffering, the least the government could have done is keep petrol prices in check. But it's literally doing just the opposite. It's taxing us on the most basic commodity, fuel. and using us to pay off its debts.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are @IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm Mahrukh Inayat on Twitter and Mahrukh Inayat on Instagram as well.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I wanted to kind of just give a quick reminder to everybody. As I mentioned up top, we are doing our annual listener survey right now. If you could please go and take a couple of minutes out of your day and fill it out, we would really, really appreciate it. It's ivmpodcast.com/survey. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, we'll enter you into a random drawing, and we're going to be sending out swag to a bunch of randomly selected listeners. So do definitely get on board that train. Let me tell you a little bit about what we did on the network this week. We launched a new show called Zindagi Diaries with Ragini Kumar. Many of you might have seen Ragini on television during the IPL. She's a presenter, but she's showing a different side of herself over here with a poetry podcast. Give it a shot, give it a listen. Let me know what you all think. Vishal Gondal is back this week after a while. He's been on an extended break, but he has Rahul Narvekar for the first episode. Really interesting conversation. Do check it out. Raji Samant joins Gauri Devidayal on This Round Is On Me, the two talk about the wine business and what's going on there. We had a number of conversations about the Farmers Bill and the surrounding agitation this week on the network as well. Mahrukh Inayat had a great episode on the note. Puliabazi did a deep dive into the issues around this. And on Siders, we have our typical, fun conversation about this stuff with a little bit of a seriousness, a little bit of fun. Do check that out on Cock and Bull on Thursday last week. Akash Mehta joined us for that episode. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
जिंदगी डायरीज के पन्नों में कुछ पुरानी यादें, समुंदर किनारे झूमते दरख्त, जवान दिल की धड़कनें और अनजान मुलाकातें हैं। तो आइए खोलिए मेरे साथ जिंदगी डायरी के पन्ने और साथ ही खुलकर जीते हैं जिंदगी। आप सुन सकते हैं जिंदगी डायरीज IVM पॉडकास्ट ऐप या वेबसाइट पर, या जहां कहीं से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो।